Hello, viewers. Welcome back to Hansraj e-Samvaad. Welcome back to this ongoing lecture series on VAC Culture and Communication. I welcome all of you. I welcome all the students, all the viewers, and everyone to this lecture, which is the fifth part of our lecture of this ongoing lecture series on VAC Culture and Communication. My name is Piyush Chaudhary, and I'm currently working as an assistant professor at the Department of English at Hansraj College, University of Delhi. So, as we know, the title of the paper, as you can see, as the viewers can see, the title of this lecture is going to be Sudha Murthy's How to Beat the Boys, which is basically a short autobiographical essay that Sudha Murthy writes about her college days in at the BVB college where she did her BTech, and this essay goes on to discuss about certain aspects related to women, because it talks about how women were gaining entry during the 1960s, 1970s, and early 1980s in India. Women were gaining entry, they were getting out of their homes, and how India gave them the opportunity to be a participant in the growth of India. And as we know, Sudha Murthy, the very famous entrepreneur, and she is also one of the founding members of the famous IT firm that is Infosys, Narayan Murthy's wife. And we know the very important role that Sudha Murthy has played in bringing forward the philanthropic ideas, in bringing forward Infosys philanthropic ideas to the whole world. Sudha Murthy needs no recognition, everyone knows her name, and one of the reasons that she has been put in this syllabus at VSc Culture and Communication is to show basically, how language, how symbols, how societal norms shape human interactions. So as we know, this is a part of our VAC, that is the value addition course. It introduces students to the rich heritage of the nation, and as well as to the important social, moral, and ethical issues that were there, that need to be addressed, that need to be shown to the student and to the students, and the important social concerns of the current times. So basically the idea is that the VAC, the value addition courses, help students to make connections between what they learn and how they live their life, thereby adding value to their lives. So culture and communication, and this essay by Sudha Murthy will make us understand how language, how symbols, how societal norms shape human interactions. So what we are going to do is we will study all of this in relation to Sudha Murthy's essays, right? So this VAC, as we know, we have to take values, we have to take ethics, we have to take morals from the various stories, from the various texts, from the various essays, from the various short stories, the various poems that are there in our syllabus. So till now we have studied the first four parts. Now today I'm going to go on the fifth part of culture and communication, and that is how to beat the boys, which as I told the viewers, as I've already told, is a short semi-autobiographical, which, as I've told the readers, is a short autobiographical. It is a short autobiographical piece by Sudha Murthy. So basically this story, How to Beat the Boys, is about the cultural differences between men and women, and how these cultural differences were a part of the Indian culture, and how they slowly developed into something different. And right now, as we speak, sitting in October 2024, this story is a part of the 1970s and 1960s India. So at those times, there were huge cultural differences between men and women, and basically women were not allowed to be in the same space as a man. But Sudha Murthy is one such woman. She's one such young girl who has just completed her schooling, and now she gets into the BVB College of Engineering, which is an all boys arena. It's an arena where only boys thrive. Engineering is supposed to be a supposedly masculine job. Engineering is considered to be a supposedly, and I'm repeating these words, supposedly masculine educational curriculum, right? So how Sudha Murthy breaks the silos, how Sudha Murthy breaks this notion that there is no such thing as a profession which suits a man or a woman, but rather it's the intent, and a woman is as equal to a man as anything, right? So these are some of the aspects that we are going to take. These are some of the key takeaways from this essay that I'm going to teach today. That is How to Beat the Boys, which is a part of your syllabus, VAC Culture and Communication. So, as I mentioned, this story is about the cultural differences between men and women. Also, it makes us think how it is basically culture which forces us to accept something as feminine or masculine. Because in this story, Sudha Murthy goes to an all boys college and she does better than all the other boys who are there to study engineering, who are there to complete their bachelors of technology, right? So it is how culture forces us to accept certain things as masculine or feminine. Now, as we know, engineering as a term, when we talk about engineering, since the olden times, things are now thankfully, and because, India is a culture which accepts all sorts of new dimensions, thankfully now we see equal contribution, we see equal participation rather of men and women in both the educational space. Like both the genders have an equal distribution, have an equal participation in education space. But if we go back in 1960s, if we go back in 1970s, at that point of time, engineering mostly employed hard labor. Engineering was thought to be an all male domain. Because what are the supposedly feminine jobs that are there? Firstly, teaching, and then medical profession, they are considered as less taxing for the women. Since generations, this has been the thought process. It was considered that if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a teacher, then a woman is well suited to become a teacher or a doctor. But as times change, as dynamics change, as social dynamics change, things become different. They become different because now, sitting in 2024, right now in the contemporary times as we speak on, we have thankfully seen equal contribution and equal participation of both men and women. So in this particular short story, Sudha Murthy goes to an all boys domain. She enters the all boys domain and she emerges victorious out of that. And then we know the rest is history, how Sudha Murthy has become one of the leading women entrepreneurs and one of the leading founders of Infosys, which is a multi-million-dollar enterprise, and how her resoluteness, how her steadfastness, how her never die attitude, and these attitudes helped her to become Sudha Murthy as we know Sudha Murthy right now. So basically, engineering is considered as an all male domain. Therefore, this is how how society also tells us how culture and professions, they go hand in hand, right? So the story will also tell how Sudha Murthy became an engineer in 1970s, and it's going to describe her difficult journey. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story as you have seen, as has been my pattern in the previous 4 lectures. I'm going to read the story. I'm going to show you the slides that I'm going to read, and through that discussion we are going to study in more detail about this particular short story. So as you can see on the screen, this is the very first page, How to Beat the Boys. So I'm going to read from here. Recently, when I visited the US, I had to speak to a crowd of both students and highly successful people. I always prefer interacting with the audience, so I opened the floor to questions. I think you must have studied abroad or done your MBA from a university in the West. And then she replies, it comes from my BVB. I'm talking about Basappa Virappa Bhumaradi College of Engineering and Technology in Hubli, a medium-sized town in the state of Karnataka in India. I have never studied outside of India. And a few lines below you can see, I would not have become an engineer. If I wasn't an engineer, then I wouldn't have been able to support my husband. And if my husband didn't have his family's backing, he may or may not have had the chance to establish Infosys at all. So here, Sudha Murthy describes how she initially went into the sphere of engineering, how she initially went into an engineering college, and how then both she and her husband fought against the grain and they started their own enterprise, and we all know the rest is history, how successful this couple has been, and their vital role in bringing India forward to the global stage. Then we go on, as you can see, downside, I wanted to pursue engineering. I had always been fascinated with science, even more so with its application. Engineering was one of those branches of science that would allow me to utilize my creativity, especially in design. But it was as if I had dropped a bomb inside our house. Engineering was clearly an all male domain and hence considered a taboo for girls in those days. So basically, Sudha was living at a time Sudha was living at a time when it was not considered proper for a woman to get into an engineering course. Because, as I have already discussed in the beginning part of this lecture, engineering is considered as an all male domain. It is not considered as something which is it's not considered a supposedly feminine discipline. It was not considered, but thankfully today we have huge proliferation and huge contribution of women force in the contemporary eras. So Sudha was living in a time when perhaps marriage was the only viable option for a girl as soon as she attains the marriageable age, as soon as she finishes her teens or she gets in her early 20s. But it was at this point of time that Sudha Murthy finally decided to pursue an engineering because she had that fascination. She had that fascination for science. She had that interest for science, and that was something that really propelled her career forward. Look at the next lines. I was my grandmother's favorite granddaughter, but even she looked at me with disdain and said, if you go ahead and do this, no man from North Karnataka will marry you. Who wants to marry a woman engineer? So the idea here is that no one would want to marry a woman who has been an engineer. So basically, what Sudha Murthy is telling us, what this story tells us is how during the 1960s and 1970s India, it was not considered proper for a woman to delve into engineering. Otherwise, her prospects of marriage would have been ruined. And this is the fear, this is the worry that she has. Now, as we go forward, look at what the grandfather says. My child, you are wonderful at history. Why can't you do something in this field? You could be a great scholar one day. Don't chase a dry subject like engineering. My mother, who was extremely proficient in mathematics, said, you are good in maths. Why don't you complete your post-graduation in mathematics and get a job as a professor? My father was a liberal man who believed in education for women, thought for a moment and said, I think you should pursue medicine. You are excellent with people and languages. To tell you the truth, I don't know much about engineering. We don't have a single engineer in our family. It is a male-dominated industry and you may not find another girl in your class. What if you have to spend 4 years without a real friend to talk to? Think about it. However, the decision is yours and I will support you. So here we see how several of the family members, except Sudha Murthy's father, everyone else wants her to either pursue medical or to pursue a job in teaching or to become a lecturer or to become a professor, but nobody really wants her to get into engineering except her father. Her father is not that skeptical. However, he warns her about the real dangers, but then ultimately gives her the choice to practice her own freedom. And therefore, Sudha does it. Sudha opts for an engineering college. I filled out the application for BVB College of Engineering and received the news that I had been selected to the college on the basis of my marks. I was ecstatic, but little did I know that the college staff was discomfited by this development. Why discomfited? Because it is an all males domain. Not even a toilet, not even a washroom for Sudha Murthy there. Right? Because it was never conceived, it was never thought, nobody had any idea, it was not even thought in the wildest of dreams that a girl would come to study engineering. Right? Look at these lines below. She will be the only girl in college. It's going to be difficult for her. First, we don't have a ladies' toilet on campus. We don't have a ladies' room for her to relax. Second, our boys are young with raging hormones and I'm sure they will trouble her. They will not do anything in front of the staff, but they will definitely do something later. They may not cooperate with her or help her because they are not used to talking to girls. Then, in that case, Dr. Sahab, I have a small request. Please ask her to wear a sari to the college as it is a man's world out there and the sari will be appropriate dress for the environment she will be in. Also tell her to avoid going to the college canteen and spending the time there with the boys. And look at what Sudha says. Sudha says, I readily agreed to all of the requests since I had no intention of changing my mind. The truth is that it were these same boys who would teach me some of the life's lessons later, such as the value of keeping a sense of perspective, the importance of taking it easy every now and then, and being a good sport. Many of the boys who are now older gentlemen are like my own brothers. Even after 50 years, finally it was lack of ladies' toilets on the campus that made me understand the difficulty faced by many women in India due to insufficiency or sheer absence of toilets, and this led me eventually to build more than 13,000 toilets in Karnataka alone. So you see how Sudha Murthy, we see how Sudha Murthy learned from her own problems, learned from the challenges, and took strength out of her own challenges, and later on made it her strength, and how she contributed back to the society because she understood how difficult it is for women to even have basic sanitation facilities. So basically, this passage that we read, Sudha shows us how the culture of men and women are different. Sudha does not outrightly denounce the boys there. She understands that the society is constructed in such a way that even men do not know how to approach women, because the 1960s, 1970s and 90s, 80s India, in those older times, we were freshly out of independence. We were still an enclosed society, socially as well as politically. So socially also we were an enclosed society. So Sudha understood that even the boys do not know how to talk because they are not used to seeing a girl on campus. So instead of going all guns blazing, instead of hating everyone and hating everything that happens with her, she takes strength out of those challenges and emerges as a victorious woman that she actually is. Because the school is also an extension of the cultural space of society, isn't it? All the institutions that we have around us, they are an extension of the cultural space. And because we are studying VAC culture and communication, we need to understand how culture gets communicated, how culture is communicated through the various institutions, through the various aspects of society, through the various perspectives. So the school also is an extension of the cultural, the social, political, and the social aspect of our society. The school simply does not have an all girls room. It does not have an all girls washroom. It does not have an all girls toilet, because it was not thought that ever a girl is going to enter and pursue a degree in engineering. So the school is an extension of the cultural space of society. And that is why there is no space, there is no toilet for the women in the very university, in the very college that she is studying. So the college also is an extension of the cultural space of society. Then later on, as you can see on the screen, after he had finished cleaning, I still felt that the room was dusty. Calmly I told him, leave the broom here and give me a wet cloth please. I will clean the room myself. After cleaning the room to my satisfaction, I brushed off the dust on my clothes and went to class. So there was no girls' common room, as is usually the case with all the educational institutions today. They didn't have a girls' common room, right? So she just got a room and then she opened it, she cleaned it herself, and that is going to be her room to relax, to rest. Now she enters the classroom. Look at these lines. I was 150th animal in this zoo. I knew that some of them wanted to whistle, but I kept a straight face and looked around for a place to sit. Despite feeling hurt, I did not go to the principal to complain. He had already warned my father that if I complained, these boys might persist in troubling me further and I may eventually have to leave the college. So I decided to keep quiet no matter how these boys tried to harass me. In that instant, I resolved that for the next 4 years, I would neither miss my class nor ask anyone for help with class notes. In an effort to teach myself self-restraint and self-control, I decided that until I completed my engineering degree, I would wear only white saris, refrain from sweets, sleep on a mat and take bath with cold water. I aimed to become self-sufficient. I would be my best friend and my worst enemy. And a quote by Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, Atma eva hi atmano bandhu, Atma eva ripu atmana. Right? So this was what she did to win. Right? So this is what Sudha Murthy did, because the boys were troubling her, but instead of getting angry, she realized that if she speaks, if she complains to the principal, then she might have to leave the room, then she might have to leave the university, and she could not afford it. So she became a stoic at that point of time, ignored everyone, focused only on her studies, and the rest, as we know, is history. Sudha Murthy became the topper of her college. She scored way better than any other boy of her college. She defeated the boys in the boys' own game. This is also the reason that how to beat the boys. So she defeated the boys at their own game. What was the game? That was engineering. So Sudha Murthy emerged victorious in an all-male domain and became a leading example of a very successful and a philanthropic woman entrepreneur. Now, then she goes on, I had good teachers who were considerate and sought to look out for me in the class. However, I can't say the same about my batchmates. And then you can read the next 2 pages, and how in the next 2 pages she just describes how the boys taunted her, how the boys troubled her, how the boys teased her in the class, but then she was resolute enough and she did not pay much attention to it. So now, at this point of time, I'm going to end the lecture as of now. I'm going to make one more lecture as a continuous part of this current lecture series. So till now, we have studied till the point that Sudha Murthy has been troubled by her classmates and how she decides finally, that she'll become a stoic and then she'll try to find and fight her way out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop here as of now, and I'm going to make a separate lecture on some other day, and very soon I'll be uploading both these lectures because it's a long story and it might go on for another 20 minutes. So I'm going to break this one full long lecture into 2 parts, and very soon I'm going to give you with the second part. So hope to see you soon in some other part. Till then, keep reading this story, keep commenting, do express your views on this story by Sudha Murthy. You have the comment section at your disposal, and let us make Hansraj e-Samvaad the center of digital creation as a center of exchanging ideas. So I would request all of you to watch this video, to also share it amongst your classmates, because as we know, this video can be used by all the students across the University of Delhi, because this is a part of the VAC Culture and Communication, which is taught in all the colleges of the University of Delhi. So till then, keep reading the short story, keep discussing, keep sharing the video with everyone, keep learning, and keep watching Hansraj e-Samvaad. I'll see you very soon in the second part of this lecture. Thank you for now.